Hey out there Akronites, welcome once again to Around Akron with Blue Green. I'm at the center in downtown Akron above Time Traveler Records, and this episode is all about some amazing people in and around the city of Akron, Ohio. I head over to downtown Akron to Maiden Lane to hang out with Eartha L. Goodwin. We take a photo with a pinhole camera and we develop it in the darkroom. Then it's going to be back over to the center again to talk with Chris Miller of the Akronist and the Akron Community Foundation. Then I sit down with Jason Proofer, who wrote an amazing book about the history of rock and roll in Kent, Ohio. Now to kick this show off, I meet with Travis Lee here at the center. Travis Lee is the founder of the House of Kung Fu. Let's go see what Travis is all about.
When I first started doing Kung Fu, I didn't learn from a teacher. I learned from nature. The dragonflies are the only flying animal, insect, whatever, in this whole entire world that can move in all 8 directions in less than a second. And when I was training one day, I followed it with my hands. Wherever it moved, it would go right here, and all of a sudden, and I would try to mimic it and move. And by the time, after a few weeks and then a month, I saw this martial arts style called Bagua, and it's called the Dragon Talon Palm. And dragonfly, dragon talon, and something clicked in me, and I saw the movements that they were doing. They're moving in a circle, and the same movements that they were doing were the same movements that when I copied the dragonfly, that my arms moved in. I'm like, I'm doing the martial arts right now, and all I'm doing is following nature. So you can stand, or you can follow nature. Go take a walk in the park and do what the animals do. Then you'll be practicing Kung Fu. When Bodhidharma first came to the Shaolin Temple in China, he didn't teach them martial arts and how to fight. The first thing he taught them was Qigong and how to heal their bodies. And once the monks had the Qigong, then they developed it into Kung Fu. So even though Kung Fu is real physical, right, it comes from Qigong, a healing aspect, right? So even in that sense, people can understand what the real essence of it is all about. The spiritual aspect is so important. In Kung Fu, there's a spirituality attached to it. It's called Chan Buddhism, right? And you can't separate that. That's like trying to take the head off of a coin from the tail part, right? They're inseparable, just like the yin and the yang. Because if you would just practice and teach somebody the physical aspects of the training, that person can become too aggressive, you know, especially if you teach them something dangerous. So we need the spiritual aspect to balance that person out. But not only in a sense of fear and worry that this person might do something, but to create a whole organic person that has all of the traits and the skills to be a warrior of the light and a good setting example for the community. In Kung Fu, we call that Chan Wu Yi, right? Chan is the Buddhism, is the spiritual. Wu is the martial arts and the self-defense. Yi is the medicine. So we comprise all of that into one whole. So by the time a person leaves, you know, my school, they have all these different skills. They have the self skill, the mental, spiritual skill, but the medical skill to help heal people and also build them up. And every martial art move or movement within the Kung Fu system has a life lesson attached to it. For example, the first thing they learn is to stand correctly. People might say, oh, well, you're learning martial arts. Why are you learning how to just sit still? There's a saying in Kung Fu, tall skyscraper sits on wide base. And when I tell people that, I don't tell them the answer correctly. I want them to get in contact with their spirit, make them inquisitive and curious again, and give them the opportunity to answer it themselves, and then I answer it for them. And the meaning of that is, without a strong foundation, there's only so high up you can go. If you try to build a house and you don't have a strong foundation, you build it up to the sky, a breeze may blow and you'll be toppled over. When I practice Kung Fu, it's my time for me to be totally free. Free of any inhibitions, any doubts, any worries, any insecurities, because I know that I'm practicing something that I'm confident in, something that I know I can do, something that I'm mastering. And that's what Kung Fu is all about. You're practicing how to practice. You're practicing how to master something, right? And Kung Fu is everything. This video artwork that you do, that's Kung Fu. When you look up the literal transliteration of Kung Fu, it says master of, but it doesn't specify what, right? And that's what a lot of Chinese philosophies are into. They don't really spell out the subject. They leave it up to you to understand it. And the process of mastering something is what Kung Fu is all about. So when I practice Kung Fu, the essence of mastering something is something that I try to carry with me when I stop training. So I never stop training, right? So feeling free and just totally me, not forcing anything, so natural.
Next up, I'm gonna hang out in a dark room. Well, actually, it's a red room with Eartha L. Goodwin. Let's go see what she's all about.
There's so many things with film. Digital allows you to do it too, but the darkroom teaches you it's a process, and I'm process oriented. It's taught me a lot of patience. I think as a teenager I was very impatient, so when I was put into the darkroom and I have this timer and this 10 seconds means something very important, just this 10 seconds, and then this 30 seconds, and this minute, and this minute, and then this 5 minutes, and it's a process, and then it begins again. I like to kind of mix it up a little bit and shoot with litho film. And litho film is orthochromatic, which means that you can handle it like paper. Most film is not orthochromatic, it is panochromatic, which means it exposes, all light will fog it. You have to be in total darkness to load panochromatic. Orthochromatic, you can load in the red light. That's why I have these red filters on the windows to filter the daylight into red light. So we can handle litho film. So litho film is pretty cool because it's just like film, which you would never see, right? You would never see what film looks like without ruining it. But orthochromatic film is different. So you can see it and you can't see any image, it's latent. You cannot see it, it is not there, but it is there because you exposed it. So you take that, you put it in the developer. With litho film, it's a two-part, A and B, so 2 minutes in A, 2 minutes in B. You agitate it in both of those developer baths, and then you put it, you let it drip, and you can kind of see what's going on. You see tones come through, but it's when you take that litho film and put it in the fixer. And the fixer removes the excess silver. When you see the excess silver clear away, that's like a moment, because whatever your image is, you can see it. It's right there in front of you. That's like my litho process. First exposure to film method just helps the student get a grasp. Then they're ready to shoot film. From there, you can take your, after you rinse it and it's dried, From there, you put it in the enlarger, and the enlarger is, how do I describe it? It's like a house with light and a bellows for focusing, and then there's a platform for your negative to go in, and there's bellows underneath that with a lens attached to it, and you have a timer on the side. And again, you have to do tests on your time. So I like to start at like 5, like do 5-second intervals. And I take a piece of cardboard and I'll hold it over and like just like a strip or a section, 5, 5, 5, 5, until I get to 30. So I get a whole 30-second spectrum of tonality. And some things will be real white, some things might be too dark. It's usually somewhere in the middle, but that's why you do a test strip, so you can get a good idea of what your exposure will be. There's 2 things that come to mind before you even put your hands on a camera. One is the camera obscura. So you black out all the light, you make a nickel-sized hole, and you sit there in total blackness, and the light slowly comes in. I believe they call it the circles of confusion once it passes through, because everything flips and reverses. Pinhole camera is my next, is what I do next. You get like a box or a container. Like the room is a container. You can have a smaller container and you make a little aperture, only like needle size, small. And you can put your paper inside, and that's like your room wall, right? And when you open it, just like the camera obscura, it's like a little one. You open it, the light comes in, and it lands on the paper. The paper is light sensitive, so you can't expose it to light for too long, so you have to do tests. It depends on how bright it is. If it was like a cloudy day, it could be a 30-second exposure. But once you do that, and you close up your aperture, and that closure is like your shutter, right? It's the same idea. It's the window of time. It's the tool that measures time. Only you're the person that just closes it. The camera, it's like a button. You click it, the mechanism makes your shutter open and close, and you don't even think about it. But in this case, you are the shutter.
Next up, it's about the guy behind the camera right there. That's right, you can't see him, but I can. Chris Miller, he's been a good friend of mine, but he's also the co-founder of a citizen journalist media program in Akron called The Akronist. Let's go see what this guy's all about.
Stories are like our fingerprints. They're what make us unique. Stories are what make us human beings. Stories are how we process the world around us and how we pass information from one culture and generation to another. So I think stories are really important. So I like to stay pretty busy in the community. I don't like to do one particular thing. I like to do a lot of different things, a variety of things. I might be what you call busybody, but my day job is at Akron Community Foundation, and I work in the marketing department, so I'm able to use some of my storytelling skills for our social media accounts. I create videos for the foundation and some of our affiliate funds. I also work in community investment, which is the grant-making department. And I research grant applications. I work with some nonprofits as they're applying for grants and help guide them through the process. And we also put together grant research for our board, so when they make grants each quarter, they can make the grants using informed research. And the community investment side of Akron Community Foundation does also involve storytelling. We visit nonprofits, we learn about their stories through their applications, we interview them, we find out where their pain points are, where their strengths are, and we work together with them to help them serve the community and help them improve our community.
So along with being a writer and a person who studied journalism, longer than that I've been interested in music. And I've been a lifelong musician. I play saxophone, ukulele, guitar, accordion. I play a little bit of drums. I also sing. And that storytelling undercurrent also applies to music. A lot of the music I write, I use my own personal stories as a foundation for those songs. A lot of music does involve storytelling. And I also help run a group called Rubber City Ukes, which is a ukulele club in the Akron area, open to anybody who's interested in playing that instrument. And Rubber City Ukes, in a way, is a way to democratize music for local aspiring musicians. It's a way for large groups of us to play out and perform without the stress of playing as a solo performer.
Keep at faith, darkness each day, you'll smile.
So a group of us put this idea together and collaborated with Akron Community Foundation to really get this project off the ground and to help get the funding required to make this a reality. A lot of that funding came from Akron Community Foundation, also from Knight Foundation, and later we got support from GAR Foundation and what is now PEGS Foundation. But the small group of us, we were relatively unknown at the time. It was me, Blue Green, who you may recognize as the host of the show, Joanne Woodson Green, and Todd V. We each had our own specialties. Joanne focused on marketing, social media. I focused on some of the basic journalism tenets and helped with the building of the website. Blue Green and Todd focused on video production, video techniques. Todd is more in the visual art realm. Blue actually was a working citizen journalist a number of years before we started this project, so we really relied on him to share his knowledge of working with current television and working in the citizen journalism realm long before it was probably a widespread term being used. So we created a digital media training center, which was housed at the library for a number of years. And we offered free classes in many different facets of digital journalism, from the basics of citizen journalism to photography basics, video editing, social media, media literacy, as I mentioned before, even putting in elements of The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, because we felt at that time and still believe that storytelling is a really major and important core of journalism, that storytelling is an important part of the journalism experience. So the Akronist was built as a place to profile all the stories being created by the citizen journalists we were training. And while the Akronist was an accessory to a larger program, the Akronist bloomed into its own legitimate project because people in the neighborhoods and throughout Akron started to see themselves and started to see their neighbors and all the positive things going on in Akron. And as people started seeing these positive stories in the Akronist, created by citizen journalists about some of the great things happening in our neighborhoods, people started to rely on the Akronist as a media source and as a news source, and they still do. So the Akronist sort of blossomed into its own grassroots, independent media resource. When we launched the Media Center in the Akronist, it was a relatively experimental project. And like many experimental projects, many people may not have thought it would last, or maybe a couple years and then would be on to something else. But I'm happy to report 8 years later, the Akronist is still running strong, still has viewership and contributors. And that's a testament to its authenticity, the fact that people are still reading it, people still access it for information, and people are still contributing to it. And what was the Media Center is now part of the library's Tech Center, so that's still operational. So while we're not funded by grants anymore, the project has sustained in the community, and it has a life after the grant funding.
Now to wrap this show up, I'm going to meet with Jason Proofer. He came down from Kent to meet me here at the center to talk about the new book he has written all about the history of rock and roll in Kent. Let's go see what Jason's all about.
I think I had a copy of the Complete Beatles when I was in elementary school. So it was one of the earliest documentaries about the Beatles. And I think I probably watched that 100 times. I had a VHS copy that I ordered from somewhere because I really loved the Beatles. But it was the first time that there was a proper documentary done about the Beatles, and then I got the VHS tape probably in 1986 or something. So I watched it over and over and over again, and that's like sort of the ultimate rock history piece, the Beatles. That story is like the biggest of all the rock history stories. But there's other stories, and so I kind of jumped off from there. I actually have had no ambitions ever to be an author of any kind, but I feel so strongly about the subject matter that I have been writing about that I had to become an author in order to make sure that this history is preserved for all time, or at least for the coming decades and the coming centuries. I just wanted to make sure that people knew that this stuff happened in Kent, and that it's really special, and that it's really unique, and I just had to do it. I was sort of, I don't know, I was just driven to write about it, and I wrote about it in blogs, and the blogs got popular, and the popularity of the blogs is what led to the book, the publishing contract. So they wanted to, Kent State University Press wanted to publish a book that dealt with my blogs and more. On the music side of the history of Kent, the rock and roll side. I started hearing these rock and roll stories when I was probably like 10, 11, 12 years old. I had a job very young at a local record store in Kent called Spinmore Records. And it's no longer there, but I worked there from, I kid you not, from the age of 11 to, I think I was 23 by the time when I finally quit. And I only quit because I got a job at the university. I'd probably still be working there if it was still around. And, and I hadn't gotten a position at the university. But when I would work there, I would encounter customers that would come in and they would tell me that they had seen Joe Walsh play around the corner twice a week for a couple of years. And then, you know, I'd never hear from them again. And then, but I didn't know, you know, was this a lie? Was this truth? Was this embellished? Did Joe Walsh play around the corner from this store every weekend for 2 years? When was it? Who was he playing with? You know, so I would sort of get these pieces of the story. You know, I first started to look for, when I wanted to start writing blogs, I wasn't looking for Devo or Joe Walsh or the Black Keys or Chrissie Hynde at first. I was looking through old yearbooks, old Kent State University yearbooks, and there would be photos of, say, Paul Simon in the gym, in the Kent State University gym in 1973. Well, certainly there must have been a promoter on that show. Certainly there must have been a bunch of people who worked that show. There was clearly a photographer there. Let me see if I can track these people down. Maybe they got a story. Maybe Paul Simon did something cool while he was around for, 24 hours in town. And sure enough, I found the promoter and he had a story. And I found that photographer. I found two photographers. There were two photographers assigned that night. One of the photographers went with Paul Simon back to his hotel room at the University Inn and had photographs inside of the University Inn, just on South Water Street, on the top floor in a hotel room. And this isn't Paul Simon, Graceland Paul Simon. This isn't Paul Simon, in the 90s. This is Paul Simon in 1973. This is There Goes Rhymin' Simon Paul Simon. This is Kodachrome Paul Simon. And here he is for 24 hours in Kent. Well, what the hell happened? Tell me about it. This is a guy at the peak of his career, and you had a 24-hour, or you had an experience with him while he was in town for 24 hours. Tell me about it. My book is mostly oral histories. I try and take my voice out of it as much as possible because I wasn't there, and I don't want to retell somebody else's story. I want them to tell me the story, and then I want you, the reader, to hear their story. I read an article in 2010, and I just read it. It was just something randomly that I read, and it said, "Do you want to be an author? And if your answer is yes, It said, then start blogging. Start writing, you know, get your own blog together and start writing. My goal was to get this information out, was to get this history out so that everybody knows that this great stuff happened, because apparently nobody knows about it, because it had been lost to time. It had been lost because other historical occurrences had sort of blocked it out. If you're passionate about something, just start doing it, and just start doing it all the time.
Thank you once again for watching this episode of Around Akron with Blue Green. Now, if you have any questions, comments, or you just want to say hey, you can reach me on the web at www.aroundakronwithbluegreen, or you can catch me on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, or on Twitter. Thank you and have an amazing day.